All right, man, we just gonna rock.
We're gonna rock.
Let's rock. Welcome back to the Manifest Change podcast. I'm here with Merris Blackwell, founder of Manifest Change. I myself, co-host Tyrell Jenkins, back at it again for episode 3. How's it going, Merris? How you feeling?
I'm doing well, brother. How you doing?
Can't complain, man. It's just, been a busy holiday season. The kids are finally getting out of the house tomorrow after a few days being home. With a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old, it gets a little tough around here to try and figure out things to do with them. But, my wife and I, we're a good team. And but we're excited to get them out of the house tomorrow for sure.
Would say that I could relate, but I really can't.
I know. Call me complaining, but nah, I love them kids, man. It's anytime I get to spend time with them is wonderful, man. But episode 2 came out last Wednesday. What'd you think, man? It was a little bit longer than episode 1. We kind of broke down a little bit of our business history after Hawaii Pacific. And I believe it really set the stage for what we're going to be bringing to the table here for the next 50 episodes here for Manifest Change podcast. What do you think?
I thought it was a really good episode. I thought we really dived into some more things that I think our viewers would be very interested to learn about ourselves and our viewpoints. So definitely look forward to that. If you saw episode 1, I guarantee you're going to love episode 2.
Yes, sir. And so go check us out. Before I get too ahead of myself, if you're listening or watching us on YouTube, go ahead and drop us a comment and subscribe. All those little things help us as we continue to grow this podcast network. And of course, if you're listening to us on Spotify, certainly leave us a comment, share it out to a friend who may benefit from some of the information that we share here. But now, as we look ahead to episode 3, man, we are staying consistent, aren't we? We're staying consistent.
A good thing.
It's a good thing. We have a very special guest. We're going to switch it up a little bit this week. We have a special guest. We did post a little bit about him or allowed him to talk about his experience with Merris through the Manifest Change program. Mr. Cody, Chea, a 19-year-old recent high school graduate. We're going to bring him on here in a second. But I want to allow you the opportunity, Merris, to kind of edify this young man and, speak a little bit about your experience with him and speak about your experience with him as your mentee.
So I truly feel that meeting this young man, it was miraculous. The fact that he, the way it came about, us simply playing a basketball game, and us meeting and talking, and then him going his way, and me going mine, and simply bumping back into each other again. I really felt like that was the universe bringing us together, as I was stepping forward in what I was trying to do with Manifest Change and with him needing the advice that he needed. I don't want to tell too much of the story. I want to give him an opportunity to tell his story from his viewpoint. But for me, it really solidified the fact of what I was trying to do with these young men. And I'm grateful for it.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, we'll definitely not want to, do any spoilers before we can get him on. But yeah, let's bring Mr. Cody on and we can introduce him or allow him to introduce himself and then we'll learn a little bit more about him.
No problem.
What's going on?
There's the guy.
Yep. Did you hear me good?
I can hear you perfectly, man.
All right. Awesome. Hopefully
Cody,
it translates good with the audio and everything.
I know, man. We worry about that. Merris and I we're pretty new to this. And so the audio, the video, everything has got to be right. But it never is, man. But it's a work in progress. Cody was actually one of Merris's first ever mentees in the Manifest Change program. You might not even known it, but you were. I just want to kind of introduce myself to you as one of the folks behind the scenes with this Manifest Change program. And so that's why we're now doing these podcasts and stuff to increase awareness for what Merris is doing up there in New Hampshire. So with that being said, how has your holiday season been, my friend?
Oh man, it's been a roller coaster, man. It's been good. Spending some time with family. I had a friend come up, hang out, and that was cool and everything. But how about you? How was yours?
Good, man. I have 2 children. I have a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old that obviously, and my wife. My wife doesn't work, so she's always here with me, and the kids Obviously, we're out of school. They didn't have daycare, so we had them at home. And so I don't know if you have any nephews or nieces or anything, but it's very difficult to entertain modern kids. You know,
Yeah, get on my iPad, man.
we have all of that.
What, you got a boy and a girl?
No, 2 boys.
Oh, there you go.
2 boys.
Yeah.
So, you know, I was telling Merris earlier, you know, that I don't regret a thing, but it's just like they keep you on your toes, man. They keep you on your toes. So yeah, it's been good. So most of your family lives here in there in New Hampshire.
Florida. Originally I was born in Lowell, Mass, and then I moved to New Hampshire. And my parents actually separated last year, and they've moved back to Lowell, Massachusetts. And then I've stayed here with my family. And my brother's also in the Navy right now. He's home at the moment, but usually he's in Maryland.
Fantastic. Merris, we talked a little bit about how you met Cody. It was on the basketball court. What the heck were you doing on the basketball court, Merris?
Hey, despite being 45, I still like to stay active, man.
I know you do.
Yeah, so it was just a regular day where, like I said, I was just trying to be active, health is wealth, right? So I was outside. I had just finished actually lifting weights, and I was decided I wanted to go play basketball and do a little cardio. So I was outside shooting, and correct me if I'm wrong, Cody, but I believe you came up to me and
Right.
asked me if I wanted to play one-on-one.
Yep.
So it was just a casual one-on-one game, which I believe I won.
Oh, you believe so, huh?
I was going to ask who won that.
I believe so. I don't want to go there, Merris, but I don't know about that one.
Oh, spade to spade. I mean, did he win? Did he lose? I mean, come on. Inquiring minds have to know.
I did my thing, man.
Yeah, man. I bet you won.
Nah, he won.
25 years
Yeah.
junior, so he better have won. No, that's cool. So as I recall the story, y'all did the one-on-one, probably played a couple games, y'all departed, didn't think anything of it, and then you ended up bumping into him again.
Well, actually, what happened was after we played the game, I was resting up. Old man had to rest in between games, and we started a conversation. Cody, you want to go ahead and let them know what that conversation was about?
Yeah, man. So like any other young man, he'll go through some growing pains when it comes to maturity and understanding different things at different levels. Just becoming an adult and recognizing parenthood. You know what I mean? Because we all go through these pivotal moments where we may have felt some type of way about how our parents may treated us and this and that. And during the situation, during this time era, I learned a lot just within my life and my circumstances from my family. And I talked to Merris a little bit about a situation that had happened with my mother. My parents had divorced recently, and I was feeling some type of way, and I was just kind of just telling Merris about how I felt about certain things, and he gave me some insight, a lot of insight actually that stuck with me even to this day. I still think about. He talked about just very basic information. He didn't even give me information about my exact situation, but he was very broad to the point that I could understand where he's coming from. And some of the lessons he taught me was about motherhood and just in motherhood itself. Your mother will become pregnant, and in that process, she could decide to, abort the baby, right? And in that case, I would have never been alive. My mother could have been harmed or maybe even died in the process of going through labor with me. These simple frames of mine really gave me a lot of insight about my mother. And like I said, I still recall those moments today. And honestly, it's an amazing thing. And I moved on from that moment. And I thought it was a great thing that we met. And then we kind of, we shook it off, and then we went on about our own days, right? And then next thing you know, maybe a week later, we saw each other at the library.
Yeah,
And then
definitely.
You want to tell them about the library?
Yeah, well, first, so I want to go back a little bit, if y'all don't mind. So, like, I just want to explain, to you why I actually gave you that message, and why it was so easy for me to give that message, right? Because, as I said, it wasn't planned. Like, I wasn't out there because at the time, right, I wasn't even fully committed to becoming a mentor, right? But it was something about hearing what he was saying, and it spoke to me, right? And I know where it comes from. It comes from the fact that, at 16 years old, I had to deal with my mother, having a unexpected stroke, and at 17 years old, almost 18 years old, having to bury her, right? And I never want any other young man to have to experience that, to hold some type of resentment or ill will towards their parents and not have the opportunity to say, I forgive you or I understand. Because we think when we're young, right? We think we know more than what we really do. And we think we have a full understanding of what our parents have to endure to raise us. And, that was the message that I was trying to get across to you at that time, briefly, because, we didn't know each other,
Mhm.
So, but yeah, so like you said, a week and some change passed, and I'm in the library, right? And I'm minding my business, and I'm looking for a book, and I remember running into you, like you called my name, which that within itself was even crazy because who would expect you to remember Merris, right?
Mm.
It's not a common name. So so then that's when I saw you, and I informed you that I had this idea about the nonprofit, and asked you if you were interested.
Ah, that's cool. So that's how it all began.
Yeah,
So then you
simple like
guys, so you followed the plan, right?
right.
You guys met like what, once every couple weeks, once a month?
No, so it was every week actually.
Oh, every week.
Yeah,
Nice.
we met consistently every week.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a time, man, because we would meet up, we would talk for too long. No,
There's
not really too long, but he just showed me a lot of perspective. A lot of perspective that one of the biggest lessons I've learned this year, and just in general in life as a young man, I can say this for other people, is that you got to be willing to soak up game. You know what I mean? And you got to be able to recognize it even when you don't want it. And I think that's one of the biggest pills I had to swallow when it came to Maris, because he would break things down in a logical way, in a way that it was so obvious, but you were so close minded, you were so egotistical that's like, I'm not trying to hear that. But I hear what you're saying. At the same time, you got to be open minded enough. And through that time, we really, I can say I kind of began to approach his ideas a lot more and implement them into my own life. And yeah, I think I
I
began
think
to realize that this is someone I like to keep around. This is a perspective that I value.
that's amazing, and I applaud you, Cody, because not only are you young, but you're very well spoken, and I'm actually um, enamored by your intellect. Respectfully, um,
Thank you.
and because as an 18-year-old, I cannot even
19.
begin. Well, I'm just saying when you first met me,
Oh, okay.
when you
Gotcha,
first
gotcha.
started rocking with him, um, I don't know if would have been so receptive to an old head's advice.
Yeah, man.
Because I have a similar story as you, Cody. I was 19 when I found out my parents were getting a divorce as well.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's taken decades, and I'm still not healed from it.
Mm.
But it took at least a decade for me to reconnect with my mother and my father. And I spiraled into addiction as a result of my parents getting a divorce. And so it's crucial, man. I wish I could have had a Maris in my corner in those moments. And so kudos to you for being willing to accept Maris for what he was trying to help you through. Because those moments like that, man, you can go one way or another, you know.
For sure.
Um, but yeah, so that's awesome. So you guys rocked for about a solid year. You essentially graduated the program. Now that you've been through it, and you've got Maris as a lifelong friend, how has it been? Like how have you been like mentally after all of this?
Oh man, that's a great question. That's a great question because I think Maris may be able to testify for this, and I believe so that like where I am mentally, I'm not gonna say everything's perfect. I'm not gonna say everything's roses, but I will say I will encounter situations. I will encounter some type of a downtrend in my life, But what I will do is I'll find a way to pick up the pieces so I can uplift myself. And I think a lot of that comes from the mental structure I've developed throughout this year, specifically this year. And yeah, it's just overall just realizing growth. You know what I mean? I think growth is the biggest thing just for anyone, you know? And yeah, that's how I feel about it, man. And
That's great.
maybe before I met Maris, I may have I may have looked more like a roller coaster going up and down and up and down and up and down. But as of recently, I can find that I'm starting to catch more of a grip. You know what I mean, and recognizing different patterns and things like that. Especially within myself. Especially when someone can see certain things inside of yourself. And understand how you operate and have certain tendencies, right? And
Yeah,
yeah, I think those are all just pivotal for me.
that's
Help me a
good.
lot.
Self-awareness. That's self-awareness. Maris, I don't want to dominate. Jump in if you have a comment, but I'm just going to piggyback off of that. So you said you're feeling more self-aware within your friend group. Are you feeling like the old head now? That you have a little bit more clarity, respectfully.
Oh man,
That you have a little more clarity.
that's how we're gonna do this now.
Are you fine? Well, Maris is one of my best friends. Okay, he knows that. I love that guy. But are you feeling like the OG now with this mental clarity that you possess?
Yeah, you know what, man? I believe so to some degree. You know what I mean? I like to piggyback off of each other. You know what I mean? And maybe we may see certain flaws within each other in a more of a critical type of way, like a more of a criticism. But I believe so that I do recognize a lot of patterns. You know what I mean? I do recognize. I think the biggest thing for me, and it is maturity. I can recognize some immaturity in character. And that's not to say that I'm the most mature person in the world, but coming from me, my growth, I even look back and I may cringe at myself. And I think a lot of people could do that. But I think the sooner you let go of that cringiness and not that it's a negative thing, but begin to move in a more mature way, you can identify that more in other people, I guess so. And I guess that's what like an old head is, right? He
That's
relived
good.
his life and things like that.
Man, you still got a long way to go before you can actually get there, my man.
Ah,
But look, if you can start thinking like an old head now at 19, you're going to be light years ahead of both me and Mr. Maris, man, because we were both knuckleheads at 19. I don't even know Maris's story prior to, he was like, I don't know, you were like 25 or so when we met, maybe.
Yeah, definitely.
Something like that. But he knows how I was at 19, and I'm sure you were just as wild at 19, Maris. Would you like to
Oh,
tell the audience some of the things that you did at 19?
well, at 19, I was already in the military.
Yeah,
But that within itself, being in the military was a result of things that I had did prior to mistakes that I had made prior to graduating from high school. And those are things that I shared with Cody. And that was the main catalyst of our 12 weeks together. It was, it started out where, we would have candid conversations, about, it started out with talking about his relationship with his mother, his relationship with his father, encouraging him to, get that back on track. Relationship with his brother, his sister, And the reason why that was so big for me is because I come from a family where it's chaotic, and as I mentioned in the very beginning, I don't want any of these young men out here to have that same regret that I have of, your parents or someone that you truly care about, passing away and you never getting the opportunity to make amends, you know? So I'm not saying that you're not allowed to be upset. I'm not saying that you can't have some type of feeling, but I always encourage Cody try to rectify the situation. So after, say it again.
It's not easy to do.
No, it's definitely not easy to do. But it's easy to be mad, right? It's definitely it's easy to be mad. It's easy to shun someone and push them out of your life. But it takes a real man to be able to forgive, right? Because we all have flaws. We all have flaws. We all make mistakes. But the biggest thing over the last couple of years that I've had to learn to implement into my life is looking at things in a biblical way. And with looking at things in a biblical way, I started to understand that, one day when I pass away, right, I'm gonna ask the Lord to forgive me. So how can I ask him to forgive me for my wrongs if I can't forgive my fellow brother, my fellow sister? And that was the message that I gave to Cody.
Yeah,
You know,
super strong.
Yeah, man.
so
Strong, man.
yeah,
I tell you what, pain is a MF, man. Dealing with pain and coping with it is crazy, man. And just the person that you become trying to overcome that pain. Um, like I said before, it could go one of two ways. I mean, you could confront it head on, which is the most difficult way, or you could apply coping mechanisms, right? Which is drugs, sex, and alcohol,
right.
or whatever else. And so,
Which, not to cut you off, but those
yeah.
are all things that I've done in my past. Those are all mechanisms that I use. And the funny thing is that I only recently realized it, because and this is another thing that we have discussed, and I've also discussed with Cody during the mentorship, is that because I wanted him and any future mentee to understand that, what I'm saying to you, it's the same problems that someone else has to deal with, and that person being myself. I'm not exempt from the things that I'm telling you, right? So with learning more about myself, I started realizing like, oh, okay, this is why I do this. This is why I do that. But what happens is a lot of people, they start recognizing their flaws and they want to ignore the flaws. And that's where the problem lies. The problem lies in the fact that you recognize it, but then you do nothing to try to change it.
Yep. And that's why they have therapy. And that's why therapy exists. Because of that. Yeah, man. Crazy, crazy stuff. I really wish that and that's one of I was telling my wife the other day, that's like literally my driving force behind my philanthropy at 40, is that I just wished that I had a Merris, man, when I was Cody's age. I didn't have a father to guide me, man. I didn't have any favorite uncles or older cousins or anything like that. Like I literally went through this world navigating adulthood just on my own, essentially reconnaissance, my own research, finding friends that knew anything about adulthood. And it sucked, man. It really sucked.
Yeah.
The anxiety that I felt during from 18 to 24 or 25 was ridiculous because I just was winging it.
Yeah,
So
man.
I don't know if you can relate to that, Cody, or not, but
Oh, for sure. And I applaud you for becoming a father and everything like that. You know what I mean? And doing what you're doing now, because it's a lot of growth. You know what I mean? To take a whole
so much.
180 and whatnot to become that man. You know what I mean? And that's really what I aspire to be like. You know what I mean? And make that type of change in my life. Right. Yeah, I can totally agree when it comes to like finding that male role model. And a lot of times, more than not, we look on social media and we may admire someone. This is actually one of Merris's teachings of me. I used to admire certain figures that I see online, and the truth of the matter is, I would put them on a pedestal where way that I would look at them as something more beyond of what a human is. And I think it's easy for someone to do that when they don't necessarily have maybe a father figure in their life, or maybe a strong big brother, and what this and that. But I think one of the biggest momentum building things for myself is actually like a book like this, is Marcus Aurelius Meditations. Is I found this book to speak to me a lot in a moment that I struggled a lot mentally, and it just taught me the core principles of being a man. And you know what I mean? What a man thinks is who he will become. There was a quote in there that says something like, do not view a problem as more than a problem, as it is just a problem. And as a young man, we'll deal with multiple problems that we find them so sophisticated when all it may really take is for me to go and do the most simple task. You know what I mean? It could be the most simple task, but we overstimulate ourselves with that. And this is also a great book, The Way of the Superior Man. just happens to be so convenient by my desk. But just I think the information is out there. Like I said with Maris, it's a beautiful thing that we met. And if you're willing to learn, there's this quote: once you're willing to learn, you will find your teacher. And I think that's truly what happened in the most divine way.
Dude, you're modern day Socrates, aren't you, Cody?
Ah,
I
yeah,
think
man.
I think you're an amazing kid, man. I see brightness in your future, and I'm curious, man. Like, have you figured out what you want to be when you grow up, man?
Yeah, man. So that's a very interesting question. So from a young age, I always wanted to build things. You know what I mean? Sort of, maybe you could say in an unusual type of way. You know what I mean? I enjoy primitive type of things. My father was from Cambodia, and he used to walk miles to school. He used to be a teacher. He used to do a bunch of different things, carry the water back home. And I always enjoyed that type of lifestyle. And I think I want to replicate that in a way that might be something like architecture, building my own home. And I think that's really just like the main goal. But in the present moment, in the near future, I see myself just looking to help other people. You know what I mean? I think that's the truest form of it all. Is they say inspiration is the highest form or is the highest action that a human can make to inspire, right? And beyond money, beyond really anything like that. And it's not to sound super perfect, but it's true. It's a different feeling, and I can't even imagine what Maris may see in me. That he's seeing me go from this to that, and having the frustrated moments. You know what I mean? Learning how to do. He's learning on the job, right? And I think this is a beauty to it all, from becoming a student to the teacher and things like that. I'm just interested in just things like that. Not entirely. I don't entirely know what I want to do. Just like really anyone, I guess. But I think I'm coming close. Maybe in fitness. I think fitness is a is a form of it. To manifest a change in your body. It's something I'm working on every day. So
Oh, that's great. That's great. I mean, if you have the spirit of wanting to learn, and the spirit of wanting to grow, I mean, at 19, bro, the world is your oyster for real. Like, you have so much time, bro. Like, an amazing amount of time to get it right and to kind of get it figured out. Continue to read and soak up all of that information. Um, you're well on your way, bro.
I
Seriously.
appreciate that a lot.
Maris, how have you changed since meeting Cody, man?
Well, one of the things that I did, I actually thank Cody for, was while working with him, I developed, obviously, I had to develop patience. Um, and I had to develop listening, being able to listen. And, because although I come with the experience, this isn't about me, right? Being a mentor is about helping my fellow man, right? So I have to have the patience to be able to listen to what they're saying, even when I don't agree with it. You know, uh, I remember a conversation that me and Cody had where he was insisting on being a boss. Remember that, Cody?
Oh, I know this one.
And which there's no problem with thinking highly of yourself, but in that conversation, I was trying to get him to see that, which was something that was taught to me a long time ago, where your greatness, you shouldn't be quick to anoint yourself as great, but allow others to see your greatness and acknowledge it. And that was the message that I was trying to get across to him. But the way I was saying it to him, it wasn't registering. So there was resistance there. And he was getting visibly annoyed, and I had to show restraint to the point where, like, I said, okay, we'll revisit this on another day. And we this was a Zoom call, actually. So we ended the conversation, and I rescheduled it, and we did it in person. And the next conversation was great. And it was during that moment of patience that and a week later I actually told him about this, and I thanked him because I started realizing, like, okay, this young man, I'm showing restraint on how I'm, speaking to him, all of these things. And it built the relationship with my son, who is 22, soon to be 23, because there's there has been times where, because my son is my son, where because I care so much, right? Where I find it hard to allow him to grow, or I take offense to when I give him an idea or a thought and he doesn't receive it the way I think he should. So with working with Cody, I started realizing, like, hey, if I can do this with this young man, I can do it with any young man. And that was one of the greatest gifts that Cody gave me, outside of the opportunity to share with him my experiences and helping. So I thank you again, Cody, for that, because
Yeah, man.
ever since working with you, like I said, it's really helped me, because and then I got to tell this story too. So Cody and I, we worked together on the shipyard, and there was a gentleman who was trying to get into the elevator, and the way he went about it was pretty rude. As far as, like, he just came through the door and just hopped in front of us, and it seems like a small thing to the average person, but the old me would have took it as, hey man, like, what are you doing? You don't see us standing here? And because I'm trying to be a better person myself, and obviously I want to set the right example. I show restraint. And the reason why I bring up this story is because, again, what I alluded to earlier, where, things that I try to teach others are things that myself that I'm working on, and I'm striving to be better. And I think that a lot of times that's lost, where people think because others are in this certain position or this certain role, they hold them at a high pedestal, and it's not practical. And that was another thing that I was trying to teach Cody, or explain to Cody rather, when it came to his parents. Where it was like, okay, I understand. You look at your mother as she should never do this, and you look at your father as he should do this a certain way because of the title that they hold. But they're still human beings. And they have their own situations that they're trying to navigate through while raising you, raising your sister, raising your brother. And it's all about showing empathy to people. So yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted to say something about the first story, about how you've grown with me to learn how to have, I'm not going to speak for you, but possibly a better relationship with your son, understanding better. And I want to say as well, like, Merris, like, one thing I truly recognized with him when it came to the longevity of our relationship through the time is that it takes a lot of character out of someone like Merris to really stand with his word when he was telling me, oh, you got to let your work speak for you rather than, your voice, because that's more powerful. You know, um, him saying that and him repeating it over and over and over and over to the point where that's all I could hear in my ear when I started, gassing myself up and whatnot, is like, hearing that and also seeing him be that person was huge for me, because a lot of people, they can talk in the same way, but once you see them move that way, once you see them really feel true to that, it's a whole different embodiment. They say, you don't want to tell people about your philosophy, embody your philosophy.
Dude,
And I mean, I'm grateful, right? I'm grateful that this young man feels this way about me, right? And that I'm able to have this impact on his life, right? But I'm also realizing that all I did was simply bring out in him what was already there. I just helped him navigate through things that he was uncertain about. But he was always a good kid. He was always smart. He was always focused. He always knew what he wanted, right? He just needed guidance. And that's what Manifest Change is about. That's why I started this, because I just wanted to guide a young man. Whether it was someone that's already, clean cut as Cody, or someone who's a little bit more rough around the edges. It doesn't matter. It truly doesn't matter.
amen. Amen. And I tell you what, I prescribe to that same way of thinking. I prescribe to that same way of thinking because I've already shared multiple times that I wish that I had that, man. And so now, having waded through the fire, having figured everything out, now it's time to give back, man. And I'm so pleased that it's you, Merris. I'm so pleased, because I know you so well after all this time. And we're going to help so many people. And Cody, man, you are going to have a place in this organization at some point, at some time. We don't know what that's going to be yet. But you just keep being you and keep doing your thing. And, things will start to happen for you, man. I believe it.
Oh, I appreciate that a lot. And speaking about manifest change and just like the word itself, and even what Maris was saying about the elevator situation, I'm just having these thoughts because that's how you know something is true when you could understand the pattern of it. You could see it in different ways. Like Maris says, like he always tells me you got to look at it in different perspectives, you know, along with how you tell me to give grace and things like that. That's just one example. But when it came to the elevator, like I'm like, and I see him, he might have said something to me. I forgot what he said or whatever. But like, I'm like, well, that might be the Harlem Maris. That's Maris from Harlem. But then I see him, snap back, and it's just like that's a manifest change. It's like a whole identity, a whole different idea of a person that you kind of replicate and form yourself into, and you have an image of an idea, and as I mature, I begin to realize, self-image is beyond a lot of advice you can take. Because if you don't see that in yourself, if you don't have someone telling you that you might be that and, reaffirming certain things, it may be difficult for you, man. And yeah.
True. It's true. Everything that you're saying is very accurate. And so, I don't really have any other questions. I've already asked you what you want to be when you grow up and all that stuff. You're at the shipyard now because you're still so young. You still have so much more time. But Maris, do you have any other parting thoughts or any other thing that you want to ask Cody? Or does Cody, actually, do you have any questions for us? I'm 40 years old. Maris is 45, right?
Yeah, 45.
Okay. I definitely got some questions for y'all.
Knowledge right here.
Okay. All right. So I wanted to ask you guys because, we're constantly learning in life. What is an area of life that you are constantly learning in, whether it's the psychology of people, your mental health, work-life balance? What is an area that you find yourself that you keep coming back to?
That's a heck of a question. Maris, would you like to go first?
All of the above. I'm always trying to, well, let me say this. So growing up and over the last couple of years, learning about Black history was big. And the reason being is because, where my mother and father grew up. My mother and father, they grew up in Cambridge, Virginia. And they were born, my father was born in 1938, mother was born in 1940. And the reason why I bring this up is because growing up in the household that I grew up in certain ways that my parents had, I resented some things. I love my parents dearly and they did the best they could, and they loved me dearly, but my father was, he raised me where, it was fear, do what I say and that's that, so to understand and forgive, I had to learn about the times that they lived in, right? Besides that, self-help, psychology. I love to learn about why people do what they do and learn about people. Finance is really big to me. Actually, now if I showed you my bookshelf, it's it's overcome with finance books, things of that nature. So I'm always with a book in my hand or trying to learn something, trying to evolve. Me and complacency don't get along, at least not in this chapter of my life. At one point in time, yes, but not at this chapter.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, Maris probably got like 200 books, man. Like 200 books. I remember it's crazy because we started that journey together, man. And I, we were both kind of reading lots of personal development books, sharing titles back and forth and things like that. And I dropped off like 10 years ago and he just kept going. He just kept going. So that's cool. But for me, man, what I'm constantly learning about is how to make the most amount of money possible, man.
Time is money.
Yeah, man. No, I grew up in very modest means. I'm also from Virginia. I actually lived maybe an hour north of where
his
father was living before he passed. I don't know if that's that same area where they grew up, the Blackstone.
Yeah. Blackstone, Cambridge. Yep.
Yeah. So I grew up very modestly, and I told you that my parents divorced when I was like 18 or 19, and so I've been on my own pretty much my whole life because they were trying to figure themselves out. And I just became addicted to finding success for myself. And so, yes, I started reading for personal development as well when I exited the Navy, which was in about 2012. And that, how to make money, how to be a better, like, just husband and father, and how to be a better philanthropist, how I can best assure myself to enter the pearly gates when I pass away, and to know 100% how I will be received by the Lord when I reach those gates. Is what I'm learning about now. So yeah,
That's huge,
the
man.
main theme though, Cody, like straight up, is just never stop inquiring on how to be a better person.
Mm.
You should never go a day without thinking about how you can be better.
Mm.
And
So,
if I could piggyback off of that, it's like I said, I had to grow myself, right? And it's funny how a lot of times, a lot of kids, when they graduate from high school, those that decide not to go on to college, they think because they graduated from high school, they graduated from college, even those that go to college, that after they graduate, that's the end of learning. And honestly, it's not, and I can say that as someone who, growing up, I didn't really particularly care for school, at least not the classes that I was required to take. Even Tyrell with the marketing degree that we got, a lot of the classes, prereqs and things like that we had to take, I had no interest in. Now when it came to the business classes and stuff like that, I was focused. And I've learned that about myself over this last couple of years, where I love learning. I just didn't appreciate the things that I was forced to learn. And I'm sure that there's young men out there who feel the same way, where it's not that they don't want to learn, it's not that they don't want to be a better version of themselves. Is that they're being forced to do something that that doesn't align with who they are. And so
Yeah, sure. Fantastic questions, Cody. Appreciate your presence here today.
oh man.
We're definitely going to be talking soon. Did you have any other questions? Because you're asking some pretty good questions.
Yeah, man. I mean, I see a common interest that you guys have is the children. You know what I mean? There may be an age yet, but like I wanted to ask about like how maybe having children has molded you into the man you are, and also possibly like how having a child, you know what I mean, the innocence of a child. Some people may have it at an unexpected moment. Some people may be playing, but how has it changed how you may have viewed other people, recognizing that everybody came this way? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because some people they don't know until they have the kid. So that might be something right there.
If I may go first.
sure, go
I
ahead.
had my son when I was 33 years old, so I started my first one. Started, mad late. But I'll tell you what, they change you, man. They change you from the minute you find out your girl or your wife or your fiance is pregnant. It changes you forever. Um, and I can tell you, like, I used to say that I had tons of patience. Like, I'm a very even keeled, very laid back person. Nothing bothers me. But until them kids come out, man, you don't know nothing about patience or having patience, because they take it all out of you. In episode 2, we talked about spankings and stuff like that and how we were raised. I mentioned that I chose to raise my kids as timeout kids. Hardest thing ever. Hardest thing ever to not put your hands on the kids when they're acting wild. But it teaches you restraint. It teaches you how to use your words instead of your hands. It really forces you to kind of grow up, man. So I can say without a shadow of a doubt that I'm a different person now, 7 years after my first child was born than I was before he was born, for sure. And it's for the better. It's for the better, for sure.
That's amazing. That kind of reminds me of like this quote. It's like the mentee teaches the mentor, and the mentor teaches the mentee. You know what I mean? In the same way that as you are a dad, you're learning from your son, but your son is also learning from you. And depending on how perfect you are, will transpire the reality your child may have.
It's so hard, Cody. It's so hard to do it right. I've never been so stretched mentally than I am trying to say and do the right things in front of the kids and for the kids. never been so stretched mentally because you want to say and do so many things that you shouldn't do. Let's just say that. Cursing, hitting, whatever. So that's mental gymnastics, you know. But Merris,
Steve.
what you think?
So yeah, it's definitely something that stretches you, right? I had my son. I was 22 when his mother got pregnant. So I wasn't even 23 when he was born. My situation is a lot more different than Tyrell's because of the fact that me and my son's mother, we split up. There was a couple years where my son, I didn't have any contact with my son. And during that time I was in the military, and there was a whole backstory to that as far as like trying to get my son, which I shared with you, Cody, during one of our discussions, to where that's actually what led me to God, because I had tried everything in my power to get my son. And a young lady that I was dating at the time, she recommended that I pray. And because of the situation that happened with my mother, as far as me praying for my mother to get better and her passing away, at that time I wasn't willing to pray. I was like, F God, to be completely honest. Long story short, I transferred from Virginia to Hawaii through the military. And I remember just one day, I just started having a regular conversation with God. And it started out where it was just a conversation asking God to, let me speak to my son. And fast forward, it became, not only did he let me speak to my son, but I received custody of my son a couple years later. Unfortunately, it resulted to me getting out of the military, but it's an opportunity that I definitely don't regret, and I'm grateful for. Now, as far as raising a child, especially a young man, it comes with its challenges, especially when you're doing it by yourself. And but it's a challenge that I'm so grateful for. And it's I love my son with all my heart. And there was nothing that I wasn't willing to do for my son, which is the main reason why when I had the opportunity to leave Hawaii, where I was stationed at, to go back to New York, I didn't take that opportunity. One, because it was important for me as a father to provide my son with the best living opportunity. And I saw Hawaii as a perfect opportunity. Is Hawaii perfect? No, right? But it was better than what I came from in New York. And like Tyrell said, there's no greater feeling. There's no greater feeling than, that's my greatest joy in life is my son. Um, he's 22 years old now. He's doing amazing, and I couldn't be more grateful and more proud. Couldn't be more grateful and more proud. So yeah.
See what happens when you start talking about kids, man. We turn into big softies, bro. We start turning into big softies, man, because the kids are everything, man. They really are.
Yeah, I mean, because and let me say this, Cody. As you being a young man, that there's going to be, just like in life, right? When it comes to relationships, there's going to be ups and downs, right? But there's no greater gift, whether you stay with the woman or you break up, whatever the case may be. But there's no greater gift to me than the gift of a woman, bearing a child for you, you know, um, and I've always stood by that, And when it came to me in my situation with my son, right? I recognized it as a fact where, over the years, people have said, oh man, kudos, you was a single father. To me, that didn't matter because I looked at it as whether the woman is there, not there, right? I'm going to do my job and I'm going to give my son what I didn't have.
Mm.
And, you know, yes, my father was home, but my father wasn't home, if that makes sense. Because as I said earlier, my father had an old fashioned mentality. And that's why I had to go back and read these books and learn and study, because I couldn't hold on to that resentment of things that I saw, you know, feeling like, man, you was never there. You know, I wanted you to do this. And, you know, and that's why I recommended that you do the same, you know, not so much read books, but, you know, have these conversations. See, I couldn't have these conversations with my father, or at least I was scared to have these conversations, or I thought it wouldn't be taken the right way.
Right. That's huge, man. You know what? One of the biggest things I learned from this whole thing, there's a lot of big things that I learned from this whole thing. You know what I mean? But like something that I recognize now is like, man, what's true, what's most true, man, is like people might look at you like you're young. Oh, he's too young to do this. He's too young to do that. But what's really true and what's realer than anything is taking initiative. Don't matter what age you are. If there's someone you love, if there's a job opportunity, man, you gotta go and you gotta come as who you are. You gotta present yourself and you gotta be honest. And yeah, I think a lot of people, I think the world respects authenticity over anything, you know?
And you got to believe in yourself, man.
It's a fact.
Got to believe in yourself, because at the end of the day, one who has to look at you in the mirror every day. And if you don't like what you see, you got to make changes. Right. And so, yeah, initiative is critical. Just being brave, being brave enough to step up and try.
Mm-hmm.
And to say,
yeah,
I can.
Right. Because at the end of the day, right, you know, you can fake for the world, but you're the one that has to look in that mirror and live with the results, you know. And I actually remember telling my son this, because my son, you know, he used to box. He was an amateur boxer, you know, and you know, he was preparing for a tournament. And I remember telling him, you know, it's not about winning or losing. It's about, at the end of this tournament, you know, being able to look in the mirror and saying, you know what, I gave it my all. Because, you know, there always has to be a winner. There always has to be a loser. That's just the way the world works. But if you know that you gave 100%, whether it's in a boxing ring, whether it's at an interview, whether it's in the classroom, you know, whatever it is, you can live with that. Well, where the feeling of anger comes from is because deep down inside, you know that you didn't give your all.
Yeah. And you realize you could have done a whole heck of a lot better.
Right.
See, Cody, sometimes you look in the mirror and you'll like what you see, and sometimes you won't. And it's just up to you to figure out how to reconcile that and how to recognize that, rather.
Right. And I think to some degree,
the changes that need to be made.
Yeah, man. Yeah, for sure. That self-awareness
it's critical. It's definitely critical.
Just add one piece. I was just gonna talk a little bit about, you know, feeling entitled. You know what I mean? And entitlement is a whole thing. Just being a man and thinking that you have things figured out. You know, getting beyond that point and seeing things for the truth of it. You know, I think it's really important to even recognize where you could go. You know, it's really about the ego.
Yeah. Ego. Sometimes ego is not a bad thing, but it can also be a killer of dreams, man, because you could be too full of yourself and not see what others see. You know, that's when ego becomes a blinder, right? When you're too full of yourself to see what other people see that you cannot see, you know. So you have to keep that in check for sure. But yeah, Cody, thanks so much. It's getting a little late, man. Admittedly, it's been a long day. It's been a long day. As we always say, we can do this forever. And Cody, we would love to have you on again. Thank you so much for taking the time to share a little bit of about yourself and your background with Merris and stuff like that. And we can't wait to see what you do, you know, in your life as you move forward and step into your greatness. You know.
Oh man, I appreciate the opportunity a lot. You know, even though I've been working with Merris for so long, him telling me, you know, he wanted me up on here and everything like that, I felt like it was an honor, you know, so I appreciate the opportunity more than anything, you know.
Yeah, you deserve it, man. You deserve it.
Thank you.
Okay, so we reached the end of episode 3. We had Cody Chea on from Portsmouth, New Hampshire, one of Merris's mentees in the Manifest Change program. Thanks so much. Remember, don't forget, if you're watching us on YouTube, to like the video, drop a comment, share it. And of course, subscribe. If you're listening to us on Spotify, share the stream. All of this helps us continue the mission of helping young men become better folks. We're going to drop off now. We say in Hawaii, we say aloha, but peace out from the group.
Right. Happy New Year.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in.
New Year.
Happy New Year indeed.
Peace.